It's my privilege to welcome Abhay K. He's a civil servant, a writer, a poet, an editor, and a translator. Too many hats. I don't know which one to work with. For now, we'll look at the author. Currently, he serves as the Joint Secretary in the Ministry of External Affairs. He's a diplomat, and is the Deputy Director General of ICCR. He has written 14 books, so I'm sure all of us who are from ORF today here and whose full-time job is to write will have many learnings from somebody whose job is not full-time writing. These include 12 collections of poetry, 1 memoir, 1 nonfiction. He has also translated 5 books and has edited 8. There is one poem which I will be looking out for now and reading called Earth Anthem, and that has been translated into more than 160 languages. 160 languages. I mean, that's seriously something. When we met the first time, it was a pretty normal meeting, you know, one bureaucrat, one think tanky, talking here and there. Had I known this 160 figure then, I would have approached you differently. He's also, interestingly, the author of the first tweet that was sent out from the Ministry of External Affairs. I think it was in 2010? Yes. 2010. We are going to be discussing Nalanda. He's written a recent book, Nalanda, How It Changed the World, but that will only be the context for the discussion today. The discussion today is on a legacy of knowledge that shaped the world. I know in the ancient times it has shaped many worlds, including the Arab world, Europe. But I wonder how relevant it is today to modern India and whether there are some lessons to be drawn, and we'll be questioning you on that later on. The rest of the afternoon will proceed as follows. I will first invite Mr. Abhay K to make his opening remarks on the discussion. Next, I will invite our discussion, Dr. Arpan Tulsian, who is a senior fellow at ORF, to give her remarks. A short Q&A and a discussion will follow, by which time some of you will have more questions, and you just have to raise your hand, and I will open it out to all of you. I've read the book, and now I'm filled with more questions than answers, which we will be grilling you on today. So, but before I hand over the mic to you, just one question. What are you first? Are you a diplomat, a poet, a writer, or a translator?
I'm a poet diplomat.
So poet first.
Yes.
Okay, over to you.
So the map you see, I am trying to take you to 6th century BC, because that's when this story of Nalanda actually begins with Buddha himself. So, Buddha is a historic figure, and you have, after leaving his palace in Kapilavastu, he comes to Vaishali and then to Rajgriha, where he, he's welcomed by King Bimbisar. And Bimbisar and Ajatasattu are 2 key historical figures in the history of India, as they lead to the expansion of the Magad Empire. So you have Rajgriha, you can see in this map. Rajgriha is the capital of Magad of that time. And Buddha then, he is welcomed, but he refuses the hospitality of Bimbisar and proceeds to Bodh Gaya, where he attends enlightenment. But once he attends enlightenment, he comes back to Rajgriha after he gives his, first sermon at Sarnath. And because Rajgriha is something like London or New York of that time, it's the most happening place. All the major philosophers of that time are in Rajgriha. So there is not only Buddha, but you also have Mahavir. You also have Sanjay Belatthiputta, one of the key philosophers, who has 2 disciples called Sariputra and Mogglayana. These 2 are key disciples of Sanjay Belatthiputta, who switched to Buddha, along with 500 followers of Sanjay. So it's almost like a coup, and you have then Buddha appointing them as his 2 chief male disciples. And Sariputra is known as Dharma Senapati. So he is responsible for starting Buddhism as a religion. Now, both Sariputra and Mogglayana, they come from Nalanda. They are childhood friends, and they, they have made a pact with each other. They have come to the city of Rajgir. Nalanda is a suburb of Rajgir. So they come to Rajgir to attain enlightenment, and then they become chief disciples of Buddha. Now, fast forward, Buddha, after his, he is close to his Mahaparinirvana, and Sariputra attains Nirvana before him, and he passes away at Nalanda. He attains Nirvana at Nalanda. And then we have 300 years later, you have Magad, the capital has shifted already to Patliputra. Nalanda is more important than Rajgriha itself, because Rajgriha is in decline. It's the former capital, not the present capital. And you have Ashoka, Emperor Ashoka, with keen interest in reviving Buddhism after the Kalinga War. And he goes to Nalanda and Rajgriha, and he builds a stupa for Sariputra. And that's the, that becomes the, let me show you a bit of, this is the Gridhkut Parvat in Rajgriha, where Buddha, he spends lots of his time preaching, and all his important sutras, particularly the Heart Sutra, which every Mahayana Buddhist today knows, is ascribed to be given at this place, and given by Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara to Sariputra. So Sariputra is a central figure. This is a copy of Sanskrit manuscript of Heart Sutra, you can see, and written in Siddhama script, and it's at the National Library of France, actually. Here you have, two of them, Sariputra and Mogglayana, being made disciples of Buddha at Venuvan in Rajgriha. And this is an image of Gautam Buddha and his two chief disciples in Bangkok. So, so I'll come to that later. But I'm talking about King Ashoka. Here you see Ashoka portrayed in a panel. So King Ashoka founding a stupa at Nalanda, and that stupa becomes the nucleus for the growth of the vihara. He also founds a vihara along with the stupa. So Ashoka is the one who is responsible for starting a vihara in Nalanda. And then we move another 300 years. 300 years pass. We have one of the greatest philosophers in the history of mankind, Nagarjuna. And it's Nagarjuna who is ascribed, or who is attributed to retrieve the Heart Sutra, or the Pragya Paramita Sutra, as we know. Heart Sutra is a part of it, from the Nagas. And no wonder he is known as Nagarjuna, one who is victorious over the Nagas. And Magad, particularly has a very rich culture of serpent worship, even today. So you have these great sites dedicated to the Nagas and the serpents and the gods and goddesses who are sacred in that tradition. And so here Nagarjuna, he comes up with a philosophy called Madhyamaka, which is also known as Shunyavad, and the concept of Sunyata, which comes from Pragya Paramita Sutra itself. So you have Nagarjuna founding almost, making Nalanda, giving Nalanda its software, which makes it, go on. And Nagarjuna is followed by his great disciple Aryadeva. And then you have a series of scholars over almost a millennia, right from 1st century AD up to 1100 AD, actually. The great philosophers of Nalanda, about whom I have written, which includes Dharmakirti, which includes Dinanaga, which includes Shanti Deva, and so many others, from Atisha, who is probably considered to be the last greatest scholar, but also not Atisha only, but Dhyanabhadra, who is the last monk ordained at Nalanda in early late 13th century, early 14th, late 12th century, early 13th century, and who is a famous monk in Korea and in China. So then, after Nagarjuna, you have. So how does Nalanda become a university or Mahavihara? So you have in the Kumar Gupta one in 5th century AD, making a concrete vihara, and that's what the archaeological evidence shows, that the first concrete vihara was built during the time of Kumar Gupta one. He is also known as Sakraditya. Here you have Sakraditya, killing a lion. So and in this journey, and then successively Nalanda is patronized by not only the Gupta dynasty, but also the King Harshvardhana of Kannauj. You have the Sumatra, the king from Sumatra, requesting the Palas to build a monastery for the monks who are studying, Sumatran monks who are studying there. You have so many successive rulers supporting Nalanda, patronizing it. So, but this is the seal of Nalanda, official seal of Nalanda, which gives its name, and officially it known as the great Bhikshu Sangh of the great or the noble Bhikshu Sangh of Nalanda Mahavihara. That's what it is written here. This is if you have visited the site, this is the site number 3, or the largest structure, which is actually Sariputra's stupa. And many people mistake it as the library, when I am from Nalanda, and actually when we used to visit during childhood, our parents often told me that's the library, but having no idea of what was Nalanda. So this is actually the stupa. But the stupa, which was founded by Emperor Ashoka, there's a 7 stages of building, 7 successive phases during different dynasties. And the stupa actually turned into a chaitya. And you can see here an artificial AI image of how it would have looked as per the, this architecture is known as Panchayatan, Panchayatan architecture, where you have the main shrine in the middle, and you have a pradakshina path, and you have 4 at the 4 corners you have the 4 shrines, smaller shrines. So this is a unique architectural contribution of Nalanda, and you can see it all across the world here. So this is these are the, you can see the coin scripture in 150 CE, and modern restored Mahabodhi temple in Bodh Gaya. They all follow the same architecture plan, which was developed at the Sariputra's stupa cum chaitya. So now, here is the feet of a 80, just which has been found at Nalanda is the Gargantum Buddha statue of 80 feet. Just the feet is left. Now, what has been the contributions of Nalanda, so here you can see the monastery number 1A, which has a architectural plan, and this is the architectural plan where you have a central courtyard, and all around it you have this cells, where monks live. They come in the courtyard and they study, lectures are held, and Swensang, when he visits India, he writes that 100 lectures are organized every day. So on different subjects, it's not only you have not only Buddhism, but everything is taught there. All the philosophies of Hinduism and Jainism, and everything is taught in Nalanda. Grammar, medicine, all the subjects are taught there. Now, there's a similarity between which I have written about how university itself, as we know today. So a university, what does what's a university is. A university is where you have the universal number of subjects being taught. You have international faculty and international students, and you have a building. You have an architectural plan, and you have patronage, means there's a state funding. So that in its entirety has evolved at Nalanda from its journey from Vihara to Mahavihara. Here you can see the quads. It's a main quad of the Oxford University, and you can see the similarity between the how the courtyard, there's all the buildings are around the courtyard, and this is because the journey of a university begins at Nalanda, and it's in the book how the colleges and universities have evolved. Modern colleges and universities all across the world have evolved. Uh, then so then destruction of Nalanda and decline of Nalanda, which is, there are two different things. The decline of Nalanda is it happened over centuries, because there was a decline in Buddhism itself even during the time of Xuanzang when he was visiting India, while destruction of Nalanda is attributed to the Turks who were invading from the northwest of India because of the fall of the last, Gahalabada dynasty, which fell in 1197, and creating a political vacuum in north and central India, leading to the invasions and destruction of not only Nalanda but many other Buddhist monasteries. Also, the rise of gradual acceptance, democratization. I mean, more penetration of Brahmanical, Puranic Brahmanism, in the masses through Bhakti movement, etc. They all slowly led to the decline of Buddhism. You also have the patronage shifting, but Nalanda, did not really end in 13th century. Actually, Nalanda was destroyed. The physical structure of Nalanda was destroyed, but not the quest of knowledge and not the institution itself. So you have right in 15th century, just after a century and a half of a Fenpo Nalendra being founded in Tibet. And then you have this is the gate of the new, this is the administrative structure of the new University of Nalanda, which has been founded in 2010 and started functioning from 2014, inaugurated last year. But there are many Nalandas across the world, in Australia, in UK, in Brazil, you have the institutions named after Nalanda. And this is by the way, the first printed book in the world, dating from 8th century, called Diamond Sutra, which is actually part of Pragya Paramita Sutra, a Buddhist text. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now I'll ask Dr. Tulsian to give her comments. Maybe 7 minutes, because we are a little behind time here.
Thank you, Mr. Chikramani. Good evening, Ambassador Abhay K and my fellow seekers of knowledge. It is a privilege for me to be here today and speak about one of the greatest intellectual and cultural institutions in human history, Nalanda. Before I begin, I must express my appreciation for the remarkable book, Nalanda, How It Changed the World. More than just a historical account, the book reminds us of Nalanda's enduring significance in shaping global education today. It is a meticulously documented account of university's contribution and its lasting influence, inspiring us to reflect on how we can draw from this legacy to strengthen our education system today. So what I'll talk about will be mostly like a bridge from Nalanda's past, looking at India's contemporary higher education system today. So the very name Nalanda encapsulates its essence. Na means no, and Al means end, and Da means giving. So Nalanda therefore literally signifies the giver of knowledge that never ceases. It was a university that existed not just to instruct but to inspire, and not just to educate but to elevate human thought. So its legacy is not confined to ruins of Bihar, but it lives on in the spirit of global education. Many of the features of the National Education Policy, NEP 2020, as we see today, like its emphasis on critical thinking, on problem solving, innovation, on future readiness, holistic learning, etc., can be traced back to Nalanda's foundational principles. So, what would it mean to revive the spirit of Nalanda today? I do not mean rebuilding it with brick and mortar that we have doing it already, but the very ethos of fearless inquiry and global knowledge sharing. So, this is the challenge before us, not to merely remember Nalanda for its legacy, but also make it a guiding force for the future. The answer lies in the fundamental ideas that Nalanda has represented, ideas that continue to resonate with us today and serve as valuable lessons for strengthening India's higher education system. I'll focus on six such points, six such ideas that I found most worthy, and they have been very well documented in the book. So, first, Nalanda was the pioneer of structured multidisciplinary education centuries before the modern university of Bologna, Oxford, or Paris emerged. With a thriving residential community, vast library, and environment that encouraged dialogue, debate, it was an institution designed to push boundaries of human knowledge. Its model of immersive learning, where scholars lived, debated, collaborated, provides important insights for contemporary higher education, particularly in fostering research excellence and critical thinking. The book also discusses, and Ambassador Abhay K also discussed, how the quadrilateral layout of the courtyard structure, learning halls surrounded by student residences, prefigured the modern university campus. At the heart of Nalanda was Dharamganj, a library so vast that it is said to house about 9 million manuscripts, which was meticulously curated over the centuries. So, in many ways, it set a precedent for the modern idea of open access research, of knowledge sharing, of digital repositories that universities strive today. In the last decade, India has made significant strides. We all know that in higher education, we've made immense progress, yet there remains a pressing need to improve our infrastructure facilities, expand hostel, enhance libraries, increase research publications and citations to match global benchmarks. Strengthening these aspects will elevate Indian university to the highest of global standards, as in times of Nalanda, ensuring universities don't just produce graduates, but pioneers of new knowledge. Second is Nalanda's intellectual rigor, which was rooted in dialogue, debate, and inquiry-based learning. So the book very eloquently describes the recursive method of knowledge building, how first a concept was proposed, and then it was thoroughly discussed and debated, and then tested against other disciplines. So mathematics informed astronomy, logic shaped philosophy, and medicine drew from Buddhist metaphysics. This interconnected approach remains very crucial for addressing many of our today's global challenges, from artificial intelligence to climate change. Third, Nalanda represents the lost legacy of internationalization of education in India. Nalanda was an institute without borders. It attracted students and scholars from a host of Southeast Asian and Central Asian countries like China, Tibet, Persia, Sri Lanka, Indonesia, and so on, creating one of the largest global learning networks. Yet today, India sends out about 1.3 million students abroad for higher education, but it attracts only about 75,000 foreign students. In contrast, if we see, China attracts over 5 lakh international students. So by improving our universities, their global rankings, strengthening faculty exchange programs, research, partnerships, and infrastructure, we must embrace internationalization of knowledge and make our institutions magnets for the world's best minds. Fourth, Nalanda was open to scholars from all backgrounds, with admission purely based on merit. So the book describes how Dwar Pandit, the scholars at the gate, orally screened the monks who wanted to study at Nalanda Mahavira. A large number of them were turned back, and only 2 or 3 out of 10 were admitted based on merit. Thus, while the entry was highly competitive, the university did not discriminate based on wealth or social status. Now, this ethos of inclusion is a valuable reminder of the importance of expanding access of quality education to all. India has made commendable progress through affirmative action, through need-based scholarship programs, yet we have an opportunity to further bridge socioeconomic gaps in higher education. By ensuring equitable access to resources, we can build an education system where talent, not privilege, determines the opportunity. Fifth, Nalanda thrived because of a very robust financial ecosystem. It was patronized by emperors, by wealthy donors, surrounding local communities, who understood that education was a public good, not a private commodity. India has increased its investments on education. However, it continues to be lower than the recommended 6% of the GDP. Further strengthening financial support for universities through stronger public funding, university endowments, public-private partnership, and philanthropies can accelerate research excellence, faculty development, and student opportunities, ensuring that Indian institutions remain globally competitive. The sixth point is that education today is often viewed as a means to employment. But Nalanda saw learning as a path to collective human flourishing, ethical leadership, and societal well being. Nalanda's Buddhist philosophy emphasized learning as a path to enlightenment, not just employment. It trained not only monks but also healers, poets, mathematicians, and diplomats who contributed to their society in diverse ways. So, if Indian education has to be truly transformative, it must go beyond job readiness. I'm not taking away from the significance of being job ready, but it is also important to integrate ethics, sustainability, and civic responsibility into core curriculum. So the question before us is not just about remembering Nalanda as a legacy, but about embracing its intellectual spirit to shape the future. India has a strong foundation to build upon, and by drawing from Nalanda's legacy, its commitment to inquiry, openness, and excellence, we can create an education system that nurtures innovation, global collaboration, and ethical leadership. Nalanda is not just a historical institution, it was an idea that knowledge should be accessible, inquiry should be fearless, and education should serve humanity. By fostering these ideas, India can potentially emerge as a global leader in education once again. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a great synopsis and takes the idea forward in several ways. And I think you've got nice ideas for your next book or the next edition of this book. Any questions? Comments? Okay, good. So I'm going to restrict because we are a little behind time. I had 3 questions for you, but I'm going to ask only one. In the digital space that we are now entering, digital societies that are now getting created, how do we build the universities of tomorrow that capture the ethos of our ancient knowledge, but express themselves in the grammar of digital societies, looking forward-looking societies?
So universities of tomorrow, I think, the idea of Nalanda, which she has also summed up, was to open education to everybody. And digital medium is a tool, to democratize, more easily make that happen, make that accessible. So, going by that idea, the centers of excellence in India, for example, or centers of excellence, if we could share their best research, best methods digitally, I think what we don't have today, which shows in the numbers of international students coming to India, that could probably rise much higher.
So let me rephrase this. Is a physical building a necessary condition for the university of tomorrow?
No, not really. It's not the campus which, the campus facilities which matter. I mean, even in Nalanda, what mattered was the software. It was the books, actually, the Sutra, the great Sutra library of Dhammaganj, for which people came. So if you make that Sutra library available online, people can access it all from all across the world and all across India. So I think what we need is to create that digital Nalanda. That's what I said, that if we can make our centers of excellence, which we already have, work together, work in synergy, we already will have a digital Nalanda.
Thank you. I'll open it out. Yes, sir.
Factual questions. One is, what was university called then? Today we call it Nalanda University. What was then called?
The seal, if you seal the seal of Nalanda, which was there in the presentation, it's called Mahavihara. Okay. It's the great, it's called the the Sangh of the noble association, or the noble Bhikshu Sangh of noble Bhikshu Sangh of Nalanda Mahavihara.
Okay. Second is, what was the medium of instruction? Was it Sanskrit or Prakrit?
No, it was Sanskrit. All the from Nagarjuna onwards. You see what happens after Buddha. That in the Buddha emphasizes a lot on Pali, which is actually Magadhi Prakrit. But when Nagarjuna comes in, when you have Atisha, when from Nagarjuna to Atisha, you have these scholars coming from all across India who are not Magadhi speakers. Nagarjuna himself is not from Nalanda. He comes from south of India. He comes from Vidarbha, an area which is not Magadhi speaking. So all teachings happens in Sanskrit at Nalanda. And when Swansang comes, he learns Sanskrit beforehand. When Itsing comes, he learns Sanskrit on the way in Sumatra before coming to Nalanda.
Okay.
We'll take a few questions. Yes, sir. We'll club them together now.
That even if you have digital universities, we still would lack peer-to-peer learning or social learning. I mean, the way we are sitting in this room, I could have heard you on YouTube 1 week down, but I'm here, I'm looking at others' responses, and I'm able to have a better interpretation of what's going on. So we will never be able to beat the real physical learning by virtue of digital learning. That's my opinion.
Firstly, finance is the main thing. It is one of the key thing which we have to consider. So I want to ask like that. Did the Mahavira or Sangha rely exclusively on the royal patronage, royal support, or also did it develop a local support network? And what was the socio-political standing of Nalanda Mahavira at that point of time?
Last, in this round, I'll take your last question.
So, so first one, the destruction of Nalanda. I think I have written quite extensively about it. How did it happen, and how destruction is, and decline are two separate things. All the details are there in this book if you read. And so that question is there, answered in the book, how the decline in the chapter Decline of Nalanda. I think what is more tragic is forgetting of our own the great masters of Nalanda. I am from Nalanda, but I don't see anybody in Nalanda or around knows about Dharmakriti or Silabhadra or Atisha, for example. They have been forgotten in their own homeland. So I think that is of great tragic significance. Coming to you, the royal patronage, so Nalanda was a Mahavihara. It was, a Sangha of the Bhikshus, so Buddhist monks, and Buddhist monks, or monks of any religion, they don't produce anything of their own except knowledge. So they obviously they were dependent on royal patronage throughout. And as Swansang mentions that in his book, that 200 villages in the vicinity were given to Nalanda for the supply of food and daily needs of the monks. And there's a vivid description, graphic description of how Swansang is received at Nalanda and what he is served as food, what he gets, his daily provisions, and what monks eat. Itsing, in fact, has given much, in much greater detail at daily, what happens daily at Nalanda. So, and one of the reasons of decline of Nalanda was the decline of the royal patronage. So you have a slow decline towards the funds the university receives. And, Nalanda was destroyed, or, not completely, but partially destroyed a number of times. It was destroyed by the Huns, when just a few years after actually it's a foundation, but it was always rebuilt. It was destroyed by the Gauda king also, Shashank, but it was rebuilt by King Harshvardhan. But when the last destruction happened in end of 12th century, beginning of 13th century, then there was no patronage, in fact, to no or very little patronage. There is an evidence of, the kings of Bodh Gaya providing some patronage to it, but then it ends very soon. So that's the story of decline and destruction of Nalanda. Now coming to industrial revolution, see Nalanda in fact has stellar records in giving the world zero. Aryabhat is a great scholar at Nalanda, and he is the first mathematician to use zero as a digit, which is later on his work Aryabhatya, which is written in poetic form. That work not only uses zero as a digit, but also gives algebra and algorithm, so on which AI functions. So algorithm, I mean, you have to read this William Dalrymple's book The Golden Road to understand how that journey happens from Nalanda to Europe. But you have the translation of, I mean, you have the reworking of Aryabhatya by the great Indian mathematician and astronomer who writes Surya Siddhant, which gets Brahmagupta, who writes Surya Siddhant, which gets translated into Sindh Hind and travels to the west, and how the European Renaissance happens and how the Industrial Revolution happens, which ultimately colonizes India back. So that's the story. But you see, if you read the book, you will find how scientific culture itself has developed at Nalanda, through the recursive argument method which she mentioned, and also not only that, you have the Indian astronomers are the key power brokers at in 7th century China in 664 in the court of Emperor Wu Zetian. So all the major advisors are Nalanda trained astronomers, Buddhists actually, who are sort of giving a legitimacy to her rule, because she's a first female empress, and she has deposed her husband and also her son, who would be the legal heir, and she's trying to legitimize her rule, and she builds a Mingtang, a house of light, a hall of light, and that hall of light is built by this Gautam Siddhartha, who is the chief astronomer of the Bureau of Astronomy of China that time.
But I don't think you've answered her question. What she's asking is, or if I may just expand your question, is that if we were so technologically strong and if we were so good, then how come we got invaded and how come we were not able to protect ourselves? In your book, for instance, I don't see any mention of arms. I don't see any mentions of chariots being manufactured. I don't see any mention of weaponry, weapon systems, strategic affairs being as a part of a curriculum or the knowledge that comes out. So was the embracing of peace, Shanti, through Buddhism, a cause that sort of weakened our national resolve, and we went into abstract technologies, philosophies, knowledge systems without having the defense preparedness, the Rajasic force that India had earlier?
No, not really. I do mention weapons, See, I'll just read you the para. Ajatasattu practiced an expansionist policy and defeated his neighbors, including the king of Kosala. His brothers, who equally claimed the Magad throne, took refuge in Kashi, the capital of Kosala. It led to a war between Magad and Koshal. Ajatasattu conquered Kashi and captured the other smaller kingdoms of the Gangetic plains. Magadha under Ajatasattu became the most powerful kingdom in North India. He was a strategist and innovator of new weapons, and is credited with the invention of Ratha Musala, scythe chariot, and the Shila Kantaka, engine to eject large stones.
But was this institutionalized as a learning? Because in your last chapter, second last chapter, where you talk about the contributions of
let me finish.
Nalanda.
Yeah. So you see, Magad is a great empire up to up to the 10th century, up to 11th century. So which is almost, from the time of Buddha, it's almost like 1.5 millennia. And India is conquering the world during this time. If you read the Golden Road, how through not through its weapons, but through its monks and through its scholars and through its philosophy and through its mathematics and astronomy, everything. What happens in 12th century? Why? So you have what's happening that the Palas, the decline of the Palas in the Magad is precisely because of the internal fighting. It's not that they don't have the technology, but they are fighting with each other. You have the Senas fighting the Palas. Then you have the last of the these small kingdoms, the Gahlabadas, who succeeded the Mukharis. You have them, their internal weakening. It's not that somebody else. And then you have these foreign invaders just walking in. So Bakhtiar Khalji walks to Odantpuri with just 200 horses. He thinks it's a fort. It's the same Odantpuri which is built by the great Palas, just next to Nalanda, just 10 kilometers away. So you have. It's not that India was not the Iron Pillar of Delhi. You see, it's not that India does not have the industrial power. I mean, what you call industrial revolution today, India already had the industrial revolution. You cannot build the greatest monument, greatest temple in Cambodia without the technology India had. You cannot build the Borobudur without the technology we have. You cannot build any of these great temples in India you see, from 1st century to 10th century without that. So India was an industrial power. What happened after the 12th century, that's another story.
Thank you. Any more questions? I'll take them one by one. But before that, I think...
Can I ask one more question?
Yes, of course. Just 1 second. You have one question about the gender part, and I'll come to all of you.
Yeah, so I was reading the chapter where you've named the scholars and their contributions. So I was just wondering that Buddhism as a reform movement, it allowed nuns, women as nuns in its monastic life, but there were no mention of women scholars. So did women have access to formal education at Nalanda? Did you come across any such reference? They may not have made some landmark contribution or, may not have been very famous as scholars, but did you come across any women scholars who were part of Nalanda?
Yes. Yeah, please.
Sir, myself Chikit from Amity University doing PhD, and I am from Patna. So my question is, sir, as a diplomat, how we can connect India with the Southeast Asia by the help of Buddhism, or what should have been done more in any way to connect India and Southeast Asia?
Yeah, somebody over there had raised his hand. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Ambassador Abhay Kumar, congratulations for your book. My name is Fahmi from Indonesia. I haven't read your book, but I have a huge interest in Nalanda because as our friend from Patna said that there is an interconnection between Southeast Asia, Sumatra to be exact, and Nalanda. So I had the great opportunity to visit the ancient ruin of Nalanda Mahavihara and also the new Nalanda University, both in Bihar. And in the new Nalanda University, we have about 20 Indonesian students. So I think...
Do you have a question? This we can discuss over tea later.
I will have a question. So it's about the revival of Nalanda University as the international residential university. So I think it is now revived by the so many international students in Nalanda University. And come back to the interconnection between the Southeast Asia, Sumatra and Nalanda, because I haven't read your book, can I expect a detailed information about how they connect? Because in Indonesia, we have this Muara Jambi temple complex that was told to be the prep school before the Chinese monks come to Nalanda.
Any further expansion on that question? Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Greetings, I'm Sudhiti Sana, an undergraduate student at Miranda House. I just have two questions. Number one, how did how could there were several philosophical discussions obviously happening at Nalanda University, and how would have these discussions affected the political discourse that was happening in that era? And second one, how did the colonialist deliberate rewriting affect the legacy directly of the Nalanda?
What's your second question?
Colonialist like deliberate rewriting of historiography, right? So how did it affect, like directly or indirectly, the legacy of Nalanda?
Women scholars, the one of the earliest works of literature is called Theri Gatha, and these are actually by the Buddhist nuns, women nuns, actually during the time of Buddha itself, and in fact the book of Bihari literature, which I have edited, begins with the nuns, the writings of these nuns. From Therigata. And you have, these nuns supporting, I have come across donations being given by them to Nalanda. You have royal patronage, but you also have individual donations from the laity. And lots of donations have gone to Nalanda. See, I have not come across any, luminary who was a woman at Nalanda. But when Nalanda was also the place where Madhyamaka philosophy led to Yogacara, and Yogacara further evolved into Vajrayana. And Vajrayana tradition, if you see, it's not possible without participation of women. So you have the participation for sure, but I have not come across individual names who was you have in the statues different, like there are various sculptures there, the names of them are given, but they are mostly sort of deified. So
Nalanda today would have been cancelled because it's gender imbalanced.
And then the India Southeast Asia connection, it's already happening. In fact, you have Nalanda tradition, the new Nalanda University, which has been set up. It's set up by a number of countries. So it was at the East Asia Summit that a decision to create New Nalanda was taken, and finally a Parliament Act was passed. Actually, the idea was proposed by Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam in 2006. 2010, you have the Act of Parliament and the start of the Nalanda University in 2014. The classes begin, and it's inaugurated last year by our Honorable Prime Minister. And at the time of inauguration, you have the ambassadors of 17 countries present. So that shows and today I think students are from all over the world, studying from more than 30 countries at Nalanda, including Southeast Asia. But let me give you this instance of the early connection of Nalanda and Sumatra. So there are two inscriptions, one of which refers to the construction at Nalanda of a vihara by Balaputra Deva, king of Suvarnadipa or Sumatra, and the grant by King Devapala Deva of Bengal of 5 villages for the maintenance of this monastery, which was constructed by the Sumatran king, Sri Vijayan king, Balaputra Deva. So he conveys through his ambassador, Bala Varman, who is the Sumatran ambassador in Pala kingdom, for if to support, give 5 villages for the maintenance of the monastery the king of Sumatra had constructed.
The 5 villages
In Nalanda. So that's an inscription, which has been found. This is recorded on an inscription. So then coming to how the discussions affected the political, the many of the kings, the Gupta kings particularly, they were highly interested in the discussions, and some of them participated themselves. You have the example of King Harshavardhan organizing these debates himself at Kannauj, where he invites, the great scholars of from different Buddhist traditions, and he especially requests the Chinese monk Xuanzang to come and participate, and writes to Silbhadra to depute him to defeat the Hinayana Buddhism, because when he is traveling to Odisha once, Harshavardhan, he finds that Hinayana Buddhists come and call Nalanda's philosophy as the sky flower philosophy, is like a flower in the sky, which is so Harshvardhana then writes to Silabhadra, who is the head of Nalanda Mahavihara that time, that can you depute some scholars and send them to Orissa to have a debate with them and defeat them, So coming to now the last one, the deliberate colonial, see what colonization did to not only to India but all the societies, that it took away the confidence, the civilizational confidence, the confidence you will have in yourself. So someone said, the great Macaulay said that all the knowledge you have is just good enough for one bookshelf of the Western Library, something like this. But see, then we have Nalanda coming to us, which was in fact discovered through the writings of Xuanzang, because Xuanzang's writing were translated into French, and when the French translation happened in English, the location came to, earlier Nalanda was not known as Nalanda. It had been forgotten actually, and it was known as Baragaon, the big village, or Bargaon. So it was the Bargaon was then renamed Nalanda when it was discovered through writings of the Chinese traveler Xuanzang. So it's not a straight like road. I mean, it's lot more nuanced, but I think we cannot blame colonization for forgetting Buddhism in India or forgetting Nalanda in India.
So let me take that question a little forward. What stops us from fixing things now? Because even now, when I ask students what are they learning in history, they give very absurd answers, which are counterintuitive to what we know to be facts or what our ancient knowledge systems had. And yet we are unable to change or unwilling to change. Where do you think is the hurdle?
We have to know more of our history, because I had to write this book to know more about Nalanda. I mean, all the information is there, but it's all scattered. As you said, the last book on Nalanda being published long time ago. So we need to take more to examine our own history, which I have not come across a book on Takshila, for example. I think
you will not, because
right.
Pakistan doesn't want it. They don't accept it. But at least Nalanda or even the Indian Gurukul systems, what they taught, how they taught those processes. For instance, a lot of I was writing a paper, and a lot of democratic institutional procedures of democracy are prevalent in the Kulavagga and the Mahavagga of the Buddhist texts. They don't seem to be coming out. So I think this coloniality has become part of, we are the new colonialists. And I think we will need to shed, people like you, the scholars of tomorrow, will need to take lead. We look up to you, in fact, on how you will direct this research forward. Time's up, but discussions aren't. So I invite all of you to have tea with us over there, and do speak to him. And I think you are available for some more questions over there. Thank you very much. It's been very...
and also, I'll be happy to sign the books.
Yeah,
which are available outside.
So there's a bookshop, a book desk right out there if you wish to buy the book. Thank you for joining in, and let's continue these conversations.